On the dark night of August 8, 1963, a Royal Mail train was traveling from Glasgow to London. One of the train's carriages contained bags full of banknotes, which in today's value would be worth approximately £67 million or 800 crores rupees. The train driver, Jack Mills, was speeding the engine through the darkness of the night. Suddenly, at a crossing, a red signal light flashed. This was abnormal for the driver because, at this time and place, a red signal made no sense. Nevertheless, driver Jack Mills immediately applied the brakes and stopped the train on the deserted tracks. For a moment, silence fell everywhere. But hidden behind this silence was a master plan that was about to execute the biggest robbery of the century, the Great Train Robbery, in which the train itself was stolen. Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. This sounds like a movie story, but in real life, robbers made a suspense-filled plan and looted millions of pounds from Britain's government train, and that too without firing a single shot. It all started months earlier when a few well-known London criminals sat together to plan a new feat. Bruce Reynolds, who was the mastermind of this plan, began developing a matchless robbery scheme with a few associates. He possessed secret information about Britain's national postal service, the Royal Mail. He received this secret information from a senior security officer within the Royal Mail itself, whose name was unknown to anyone. The information was that the train going from Glasgow to London had a special carriage known as high-value packages, or HVP. On a specific day, it was going to carry a massive amount of cash, and they had to rob that very carriage. Bruce Reynolds and his associates were indeed known criminals, but they had no experience in robbing a train. Consequently, they included another London gang in the plan who had experience in train robberies. This notorious gang was known as the South Coast Raiders. Gradually, the team grew, and more than 15 people were now involved in this plan. They were determined to rob the government train without firing a shot. But this was no ordinary robbery where you just stop the train and loot it. For this, months of planning were undertaken. On August 7, 1963, at 6:50 p.m., the train departed from Glasgow Central Station for London. It was scheduled to reach London's Euston Railway Station at 4 a.m. the next morning. There were a total of 12 carriages in this train, and 72 post office staff members were present to sort the mail during the journey. This train was run specifically to drop parcels and mail in various cities without stopping. Whenever a station came, the local post office staff would hang bags on special elevated racks. As the train passed the platform, it would slow down, and the staff inside would catch those bags using a net. Similarly, the mail bags meant for that station would be dropped off while the train was still moving. Through this process, mail was distributed to various stations without stopping. The carriage in which the robbery was to take place was not yet attached to this train. That carriage was safely parked at Leighton Buzzard, Nene Valley Station. This carriage was called HVP, High Value Packages, because it mostly contained large amounts of cash, money that people were sending via money orders to other cities at that time. In 1960, 3 years before this incident, the Post Office Investigation Branch, IB, had advised increasing the security of HVP carriages by installing security alarm systems. By 1961, security alarm systems were installed in 3 HVP carriages, and the old carriages that had no security alarms were kept in reserve. But the day of the robbery was the most crucial. On that day, the HVP carriages with security alarms were out of service. Therefore, a reserve carriage, M3024M, was to be used, which had no security system. This was a massive tip that the robbers had received from the Royal Mail insider. When the train from Glasgow reached the station, the railway staff connected the HVP carriage as the second carriage behind the engine. This was the first tip the robbers received, but the second tip was even more important. Normally, HVP carriages contained around 300,000 pounds. However, because the previous weekend was a bank holiday, there was nearly 2.6 million pounds in cash present on the day of the robbery. This was tip number 2. The coincidence that happened that day occurs perhaps once in years. 12 times more money was being transported, and by chance, the HVP carriage with the security alarm was also broken. But for the robbers, this was no coincidence. They had been planning for months for this very day. Eventually, the train departed the station with the HVP carriage. It was nighttime, and 58-year-old driver Jack Mills was speeding toward his destination. Meanwhile, the gang of robbers sat waiting in the bushes near the railway track. Their planning was absolutely perfect. On August 8, 1963, around 3 a.m., a member of the gang began tampering with the signal at Sears Crossing. To hide the green light, he stuffed a glove in front of it and used a battery to power the red light. Then they all hid and waited for the train. When the train reached Sears Crossing, driver Jack Mills was quite surprised to see the red light because normally trains, especially the Royal Mail train, are not stopped at this crossing. Nevertheless, Jack Mills applied the brakes and stopped the train exactly at the signal. Suddenly, a silence fell everywhere. At that moment, the assistant driver, also known as the second man, climbed down from the train to contact the signalman using the line-side telephone. When he picked up the telephone on the signal post, he found that its wires had been cut, which was part of the robbers' plan. Just as the second man was about to turn back toward the engine, the robbers emerged from the bushes and overpowered him. Some robbers climbed up both sides of the engine and tried to subdue the driver. When Jack Mills resisted, a robber hit him on the head with an iron rod, and he fell unconscious in the driving seat. The robbers had come with full planning. While this commotion was happening in the engine, some team members uncoupled the first 2 carriages from the rest of the train. Their plan was to take the train away from there. But where? About 1 kilometer away from Sears Crossing was Bridego Bridge, and that is where the robbers' truck was located. They had brought a retired railway driver with them, whose job was to drive the train to Bridego Bridge. Everything that had happened so far was according to plan. But now, the robbers faced their first trouble. The driver they brought with them became nervous seeing the controls of this new engine because he had never operated this type of locomotive. Forced by the situation, the robbers tried to bring Jack Mills back to consciousness and coerced him into driving the train 1 kilometer further. Now the engine and the 2 carriages began moving again and were stopped at Bridego Bridge. During this time, the staff in the remaining carriages left behind didn't even know why the train had stopped. Reaching Bridego Bridge, the robbers broke the door of the HVP carriage, went inside, caused significant injuries to 5 staff members, and made them lie face down, tied with ropes. They then began their operation. The HVP carriage contained a total of 128 bags filled with cash. These were £1, £5, and 10-shilling notes. Their total weight was about 2.5 tons. The train was on the bridge and a truck was parked on the road below. According to the robbers' plan, they had only 15 minutes. Therefore, they formed a human chain and, one by one, loaded 120 out of the 128 bags into the truck. 8 bags were left behind due to lack of time. Their plan had worked perfectly. However, in the end, just one mistake was made, which later proved most useful in getting them caught. While leaving, a robber told the staff tied up in the HVP carriage, "Don't try to move from here for 30 minutes, or you'll lose your life." The robbers had an Austin Lodestar truck, in which all the cash rovers with matching plates, BMG 757C, to mislead witnesses. Post-heist, they fled. After a 45-minute drive, they reached their hideout around 4:30 a.m., 43 kilometers away near Oakley Village. En route, they monitored police VHF radio chatter aiding their escape. Just as they arrived, police learned of the robbery, but the gang was thrilled initially. At the hideout, they partied hard, even playing Monopoly with real notes. But joy was short-lived. Radio revealed police searching a 50-kilometer radius. Police got the 50 kilometers from the staff's 30 minutes warning, estimating their range. Panicking, they advanced escape from Sunday to Friday, dividing loot Thursday. About 2.5 million pounds total, 150,000 pounds each. A fortune then, 3.9 million pounds today per share. Helpers got smaller cuts. Before Friday, they wiped fingerprints everywhere and tasked one man to burn the hideout post-departure for no evidence. He took cash but fled without burning. Police scoured Buckinghamshire, helicopters overhead, cars racing, national media frenzy. They offered £10,000 for tips. A neighbor reported morning activity on August 8th. Police raided the rented Leatherslade farmhouse, taken 3 months prior. Evidence abounded. Empty bags, mail, a hastily yellow-painted truck. Robbers wiped fingerprints, but Monopoly board ones, played with real cash, survived. These were a breakthrough, matching Scotland Yard records since all had priors. Police arrested 14 of 16. 2 escaped. The mystery replacement driver and the Royal Mail security officer, whose tip birthed the plan. No one knows him still. He never showed his face or name. Court deemed it the century's biggest robbery, sentencing most to 30 years. Bridego Bridge became Train Robbers Bridge informally. Jack Mills, 58, never worked again due to head injury, dying 7 years later from trauma. Hope you like and share this video generously. Thanks for your loving comments. See you in the next awesome video.